Hey guys, picture this. You're lying on a moss-soft slab in a forest that whispers secrets louder than your phone's notification ping. And you swear you just heard a pine, scented sigh, promising the best nap of your life before we let the trees tuck you in. Smash that like button, like a squirrel smashing into a bird feeder, and drop a comment telling us your weirdest bedtime habit. Do you count sheep or scrolling memes? Now dim the lights, pull your comfiest blanket over you, and listen. The wind rustles like a lazy playlist. The earth smells like fresh coffee and damp soil. And the night insects are gossiping in the background. You try to close your eyes, but the forest keeps nudging you with a gentle, almost sarcastic, "Are you really going to fall asleep when there's a whole ecosystem of bedtime stories waiting?" It's the same feeling as scrolling through endless TikTok, except instead of cat videos, you get ancient oak legends, and the only thing you'll be swiping left on is the darkness folding around you. So stick around, because if you think you've mastered the art of drifting off, this whispering wood might just rewrite your bedtime playbook. Let's find out together. In a quaint village, where rooftops danced under the glow of the pulsating stars, lived a spirited girl named Alara. With hair as wild as her aspirations, and eyes that twinkled brighter than the cosmos, she spent her evenings perched on a weathered bench, dreaming of adventures beyond the horizon. The villagers often chuckled at her lofty ambitions, whispering tales of grand discoveries and far-off lands. Yet, it was not dusty tomes or endless scrolls that ignited the flame in her heart, but the shimmering stars, their stories whispering secrets of worlds untold. A soft breeze carried the scent of night blooms, tickling her nose as she wrestled with the tantalizing thought of the whispering forest, a realm rumored not just to exist, but to be alive with the magic of dreams. Who wouldn't be curious about a place where nights could quietly unfurl into fantastical adventures? Right. The whispering forest, a tangled expanse of ancient trees, whose trunks were thick as your favorite uncle's waistline post-Thanksgiving feast. Legend had it that wayward travelers would find themselves lost in its embrace, ensnared by the melodic rustle of leaves that beckoned like an old friend telling bedtime stories. Alara had heard whispers from the village elders, just as one might overhear gossip at a local coffee shop. Tales that spoke of paths illuminated by the glow of shimmering fireflies, leading deeper into the forest than any villager dared to venture. It was said that within, a magical path awaited, a portal to Dreamland, a whimsical universe where one could live out their most cherished desires, and perhaps trip over a few talking animals along the way. And getting to that enchanted place, well, Alara mused, wasn't that like trying to order a salad at a burger joint? It just seemed so delightfully impossible and thrilling all at once. On a particularly starry night, with the moon grinning down like a cheeky Cheshire cat, Alara made her choice. She donned her favorite cloak, hand-me-down from a distant relative who thought the color was still in vogue, and ventured into the unknown, each step crunching softly upon the carpet of leaves, as though the forest itself were shushing her towards adventure. The air was thick with excitement, and the unmistakable scent of damp earth, a perfume mixed with mystery, as her heart raced like a rabbit at the sound of a hungry hawk. Shadows danced around her, casting playful illusions that whispered secrets only the most daring could decipher. "All right, you great hunk of greenery," she chuckled, addressing the towering trees as if they were an unruly crowd of mystical fans. "I'm here to crack your secrets wide open." With each stride deeper into the woods, Alara felt the electric hum of possibility buzzing around her. She could almost hear the trees coordinate their own dream improvisation. Echoes of laughter from unseen creatures spilled into the air, echoing through the boughs like a soundtrack to her own private adventure film. She half expected to hear the dramatic score swell at any moment. A soft rustle nearby drew her attention, and to her astonishment, a sprightly rabbit, dressed as if it had just walked off the set of a children's fairy tale, twitched its nose quizzically at her. "Don't worry, I'm just passing through," she grinned, mimicking the rabbit's flamboyant demeanor. It was clear she was not merely walking. She was intermingling with the very fabric of magic woven into the night air, where dreams danced like fireflies caught in a waltz. Finally, after what felt like ages, though who was counting time in a place where the stars literally whispered secrets, Alara stumbled upon the shimmering path, glowing softly under the moon's gaze like a Netflix binge, beckoning you into the night. Her heart raced with wild exhilaration, and with a final glance back at her village, the safe, ordinary world began to fade into a canvas of shimmering hues. This was it, the cusp of something grand, a world where imagination reigned supreme, where dragons might sip tea and fairies held counsel over the most whimsical of ideas. Alara took a deep breath, inhaling the ethereal scents swirling around her, a blend of adventure, magic, and perhaps a hint of cinnamon. Who knows what one would find in Dreamland? Taking her first step onto the glowing pathway, she felt a tingle of anticipation wash over her, and with a bright laugh, she proclaimed, "Dreamland, here I come." As Alara stepped into the whispering woods, the world behind her fell away like a discarded cloak. The air thickened with the scent of damp earth and vibrant green moss, tickling her senses with every breath. Rustling leaves sang a symphony overhead, while hidden creatures chattered in the underbrush like old friends sharing secrets. Each footfall echoed softly against the forest floor, yet she felt as if she were treading on clouds, soft and inviting. This enchanting place wrapped around her, promising adventures untold, with both trepidation and thrill dancing in her heart. Yet as she delved deeper into this emerald sanctuary, mischief lingered in the air, ready to pounce. Alara soon found herself face to face with a band of sprites, no taller than her ankle, but bursting with uncontainable energy. Their giggles rang like tiny bells, and before she could even blink, they sent her hat tumbling off her head, a victim of their playful antics. "You'll need that for the riddle of the owls," one sprite shrieked as they darted away, leaving Alara in a state of bemusement. They were like the gang of imps from a long-forgotten fairy tale, full of tricks and a touch of madness, ever keen on pulling a fast one on unsuspecting travelers. Alara regrouped, determination etched on her brow as she pressed on, the promise of wisdom guiding her through the maze of branches. Soon, she encountered a wise old owl perched precariously on a gnarled branch, its great eyes shining like lanterns in the night. The owl, with feathers as gray as a stormy sky, swooped down and greeted her with a voice rich and warm. "To pass, dear wanderer, solve my riddle, or be turned into a sentient acorn." The challenge tumbled from its beak in a way that felt both foreboding and utterly absurd, as if she were caught in an offbeat sitcom episode. Alara grinned. Being an acorn was less appealing than being a daring adventurer, so she sharpened her wits like a blade, ready to slice through the enigma this avian sage posed. With each puzzle, Alara felt her courage swelling like the tide, brushing away the lingering doubts that clung to her. The riddles danced in her mind, swirling like sugar in tea, until at last she could discern their meanings, like decrypting an ancient scroll from the dusty corners of a library she'd never been allowed to enter. The wise owl nodded, approving of her answers, while a smirk appeared on its beak, half amused by her outsmarting them. "Perhaps you're not just a pretty face with a knack for asking to use the restroom in tight spots." It hooted, flapping its wings in feigned disbelief. Alara laughed, the sound mingling with the forest's gentle melodies, a testament to her growing confidence in these whispering surroundings. With the owl's blessings echoing in her ears, Alara ventured deeper still, each challenge a building block of her own becoming. The trees stood taller, and the path twisted more wildly, as if the forest itself were stretching to reveal hidden wonders and perils alike. She could almost feel the heartbeat of the woods thrumming beneath her feet, an ancient rhythm that belonged to countless heroes before her, each step an ode to those who dared to dream beyond their comfort zones. As dusk painted shadows upon the ground, Alara knew She was weaving herself into the very fabric of the whispering woods, where every rustle and whisper spun tales of courage, wit, and a sprinkling of magic. Little did she know, the night was just beginning, and what lay ahead would challenge not just her bravery, but her belief in the impossible. The moon hung high in the indigo sky, a watchful guardian over Alara's expedition through the whispering forest. Shadows danced like playful spirits around her, whispering secrets woven long before her birth. Alara felt a thrill volley through her veins, a strange mixture of excitement and dread, as she marveled at the silver hues of silver birches merging with the velvet dark. But just as she thought she had decoded the forest's riddles, she stumbled upon an obstacle straight out of a fantasy film. A rickety bridge, swaying perilously over a chasm teeming with swirling mist. It loomed like a giant's narrow bedpost, and Alara's heart thumped in her chest like a war drum, echoing her rising panic as the abyss below gurgled enticingly, as if inviting her to join its spectral dance. She stepped closer, the wooden slats creaking ominously underfoot, threatening to spill her into the ominous fog below. A chill slithered up her spine, and the mist started to swirl with a purposeful intent, morphing into shapes that twisted her insides, memories, insecurities, shadows of fear that she thought she had buried long ago. Is this a reality check or a horror movie? She chuckled nervously, reluctantly reminded of that scene where the hero's fate hinged on crossing a flimsy bridge while the monster lurked below. Her imagination spiraled, conjuring images of her younger self, standing at the edge of the school diving board, paralyzed by fear, imagining the splash she'd make if she took the plunge, or rather, the crash landing. Then came the whispers, soft but relentless, echoing her deepest doubts, wrapping around her heart like a constrictor snake, squeezing out her courage. Alara's breath quickened, each inhale tasting faintly of fear and wildflowers, her mind a battleground of doubt. What if I fall? What if the bridge snaps? What if there's a troll? The possibilities raced through her like a high-speed chase in an action flick, each one more outlandishly absurd than the last. Yet amongst the chaos, a flicker of remembrance ignited within her, a soft, loving voice from her past. Her grandmother's tales of bravery, whispering softly against the din of despair, the way her grandmother spoke of heroes who faced dragons and storms with unwavering heart fueled Alara's resolve, making her feel less like a fragile flower trembling in the storm, and more like a mythical warrior clad in courage. She could almost hear her grandma say, "Honey, you can't expect to soar like an eagle if you're too scared to flap your wings." Gathering her strength, she focused her gaze squarely on the other side of the bridge, a glimmer of hope peeking through the looming shadows. Every rustle of leaves and chirp of crickets sparked a rhythm in her heart, a drum roll preparing for a grand performance. Feet planted firmly, Alara took a deep breath, inhaling the moist, earthy aroma of the forest, where every scent seemed to signify courage pushing her forward. She could almost taste the sweet victory of crossing the bridge, so tantalizingly close, and with a determined step, she placed one foot on the bridge, eliciting a yelp of protest from the wooden planks, as if they were auditioning for a comedy. However, she pressed on, remembering that even heroes trip sometimes. Just look at sitcom characters. With each advancing step, the mist lost its grip, slithering away like a receding tide, whispering sweet nothings of despair. The ghastly shapes began fading back into oblivion, retreating in the face of her newfound bravery, as if her heart's defiance was a spell of light dispelling darkness. As she navigated the rickety bridge, Alara felt a thrilling rush, a wild cocktail of fear and excitement, as though she were riding a roller coaster plummeting into adventure. When she finally reached the other side, breathless and triumphant, she couldn't help but laugh, a joyous, ringing sound that bounced off the trees, shaking their leaves in envy. Perhaps this forest wasn't so terrifying after all, especially if it inspired epic tales and a heart ready to embrace every winding journey ahead. As she wandered further, Alara encountered a giant, as friendly as a golden retriever named Max, but certainly less slobbery. Towering above her, his laughter echoed like rolling thunder, reverberating through the shimmering trees. Despite his size, he knelt down to introduce himself, and with a voice as warm as a grandmother's hug, he beckoned her to join him for a chat. "You know, kid, this place is not just a pretty postcard. It's got layers." He chuckled, offering a handful of glimmering stars that danced and twinkled like they had been caffeinated. She felt the warmth of possibilities wrap around her, yet a prick of unease crept into her mind like an unwelcome surprise guest at a party. What lay beyond this beauty as the sun began its descent? Admittedly more of a lazy roll than a dramatic exit, Alara found herself surrounded by an orchestra of singing flowers, each note harmonizing with the gentle rustle of leaves above. Their melodies filled the air with laughter and joy, a vivid melody that could only exist in dreams. Together, they sang tales of bravery and adventure, serenading her like a Broadway musical that sprouted right from the earth beneath her feet. But careful, a wise, floating lantern chimed in, its glow flickering with a knowing spark. For not all that glimmers here is golden. The lantern swayed back and forth, a dance of wisdom warning of shadows lurking, casting doubt over her blossoming enthusiasm. As delightful as Dreamland was, a chill began to creep into the warm air. A dark, looming figure slinked through the brightness like a ninja on a reconnaissance mission. Alara sensed the very fabric of the dream world tremble, the singing flowers growing quiet, their colors dimming like a poorly tuned television. This shadow was no friendly ghost. Instead, it wrapped itself around her heart like a heavy, damp blanket, whispering doubts into her ear, telling her that she could never leave. You could stay forever. It hissed, an echo of sweet temptation that could lead to an eternity of vivid nightmares and unfulfilled desires. As it slithered closer, she saw shadows of her own fears writhe within it. Fear of inadequacy, fear of the unknown threatening to trap her in a cycle of despair. But Alara was no ordinary dreamer. She clutched her previous encounters tightly like a light saber in a galaxy far, far away. With the courage gleaned from her journey, she planted her feet firmly and faced the darkness, summoning her heart's deepest flame. You don't get to decide my fate, she shouted, her voice ringing out like a powerful incantation, shaking the shadows around her. The giant, flowers, and lanterns rallied behind her, their collective energy radiating hope. She felt the bond. They formed pulse through the air like electric current. In that moment, she understood that dreams, while beautiful and enchanting, also required bravery and belief to navigate and conquer the encroaching uncertainty, sealing her resolve to carve out her own path through the whispers of Dreamland. In the heart of a whispering forest, where the trees swayed like dancers in a slow waltz, and the air hummed with secrets, Alara stood resolute against the looming shadow. It was the kind of shadow that made your skin prickle, a dark specter swirling just outside the edges of reality, like that one annoying party guest who refuses to leave. With a deep breath that tasted like the crisp mountain air, mixed with a hint of pine needles, she summoned every ounce of courage she could muster. It was time to confront the shadow, not with fear, but with the vibrant glow of wisdom she had cultivated from countless dreams, a daring dance with destiny, if you will. Alara's heart raced as she strolled toward the shadow, her bravery igniting a flicker of light within her. She remembered her grandmother's tales of facing one's fears, and as she squared her shoulders and stepped forward, a courageous grin broke across her face. You think you can scare me? She challenged, her voice echoing like a funky theme song of a superhero movie. The shadow, taken aback by her audacity, wobbled uncertainly, as if caught between a cat video and an epic battle scene, totally confused by her fearless energy. In that moment, the folly of scaring someone confident became evident, and Alara learned that embracing dreams meant embracing herself, too. As the eerie darkness began to dissolve, Alara found herself enveloped in the warm embrace of the forest, alive with sounds and scents that made her heart sing. The sweet perfume of wildflowers danced on the gentle breeze, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp moss, creating a potion that energized her soul. Birds chatted cheerfully, and even the rustling leaves seemed to cheer her on as she skipped along, a spirit reborn. Every step echoed the adventures she had witnessed, from gallant knights to whimsical fairies, each tale stirring a concoction of exhilaration and wisdom within her. Who knew that her journey through Dreamland could be so rich? Just like a well-crafted Netflix series waiting to be binge-watched. Alara emerged from the forest, her heart ablaze with the magic she had found, ready to share the treasure trove of tales with her village. The children would gather like moths to a flame, wide-eyed and giggling, as she painted adventures in the air with the vibrant brush of her imagination. With each story, she ignited their dreams, teaching them that every time darkness crept in, whether it be a shadow lurking in a closet or a math test looming the next day, they could cast it aside with bravery and belief. "Remember, my little dreamers," she'd exclaim, her voice rising with excitement. "The keys to Dreamland aren't hidden away. They're nestled in the confidence of your very own imagination." Night after night, the village thrummed with her tales, the kids' laughter melding with the stars above, like a symphony scoring their dreams. Alara watched their eyes sparkle with wonder, and it felt as if the forest had grown roots in the hearts of the children, nurturing their aspirations. The realization dawned on her. Wisdom isn't just something that lives in dusty old books. It flourishes in the fearless hearts of those willing to dream. Each story she told became a stepping stone, guiding the children forward, teaching them to leap into their own adventures. And just like that, Alara climbed into her own sanctuary of dreams, comforted by the knowledge that she was not just a visitor from Dreamland. She was its ambassador, ready to spread its wonders far and wide. In a hidden valley, soaked in whispers and the sweet scent of honeysuckle, young Alara tiptoed among towering ancient trees, their knotted trunks like wise old men standing guard over secrets of yore. The air shimmered with a magical buzz, as if the very essence of the glen had turned into tiny, twinkling fireflies dancing in the sunlight. With every step, the leaves ruffled and rustled, not unlike gossiping villagers sharing juicy tidbits about the latest scandal, enticing her deeper into the verdant embrace of the woods. She felt the silence thrum in harmony with her heartbeat, a rhythm that beckoned her with promises of adventure and discovery, warning her in the same breath of the mysteries lurking just beyond the ancient bark. Ah, what mischief awaited her in this enchanting domain where shadows flickered, and pockets of sunlight painted the ground gold. As Alara ventured further, a sudden flutter of wings caught her attention, and lo and behold, there emerged Fennel, a fairy with hair like sunflower petals and a grin wide enough to rival the Cheshire cat. The little sprite zipped around her with an energy that made Alara's heart race and her mind whirl, reminiscent of how she felt after too much candy on Halloween night. Fennel hovered just out of reach, casting a cheeky look before flitting down to land on Alara's shoulder, leaving behind a sprinkle of pixie dust that itched like a mosquito bite, but somehow made her giggle. With a voice like bubbling brook, Fennel launched into the tail of the glen, where powerful trees once stood sentinel, draped in stories only the finest of storytellers could recount, legends of valor, intrigue, and more drama than an over-the-top soap opera. Here, in a land where magic thrived, the fairies and the trees partnered as guardians, weaving enchantment into the very air they breathed. A tapestry rich and colorful enough to make a rainbow feel mundane. But as the echoes of Fennel's story hung in the air, a shadow of concern crept into her tiny features. The glen, once vibrant and thrumming with life like a bustling city on a Saturday night, had begun to falter, fading like the mist at dawn. The whispers of the ancient trees had grown weaker, their roots less entwined, and the fairies, once a lively crew, were dwindling, like a Netflix series that had lost its audience after a couple of seasons. Fennel's bright gaze turned solemn as he explained how a dark cloud of negligence trickled through their enchanted home, like leftovers in the back of the fridge. And if they didn't act fast, the magic they adored would evaporate into the ether, leaving the glen as empty as a party with no snacks. It was a clarion call to a quest that would require bravery, friendship, and perhaps a dash of mischief, ingredients that could revive not just the glen, but the souls of all who had wandered into its embrace. Alara's heart thudded like a drum as determination flashed in her eyes, fiercely igniting a spark of hope within her. With Fennel guiding her through the labyrinth of folklore and hidden glades, they concocted a plan worthy of an epic tale, set to restore the magic that pulsed through the trees like a beating heart. Here, amid the scent of earth after a rain and the rustle of leaves that whispered secrets only the ancients knew, Alara felt alive in a way she never had before. As the duo embarked on their quest, Alara could hear the wind hum a tune meant just for them, a melody laced with promise and the thrill of the unknown, making her feel like she was the star of her very own fantasy movie. Yet, as any budding hero knows, every journey must face trials, and theirs would not be without its fair share of skirmishes and delightful snafus that tangled up their adventure like a slinky in a cat's claws. And so it was that amidst these grand ambitions and swirling plans, Alara and Fennel set forth into the heart of the enchanted glen, armed with nothing but bravery, barnacle-prone courage, and a sprinkle of fairy dust that tasted suspiciously like cotton candy. They sketched a blueprint around the vestiges of magic, a safety net woven of friends, fairies, and a fair amount of humor, while laughter echoed amidst the trees' wrinkled bark. Little did they know, the stakes were as high as a cat up a tree, and just as precarious, and their camaraderie would be tested in ways they couldn't yet fathom. True magic, as Alara would soon learn, lay not just in the sprawling roots of ancient trees, or in Fennel's impish antics, but in the heart of friendship, thrumming along to the rhythm of their extraordinary escapade. Each step taken layered a fresh page in their saga, one of restoration, discovery, and the undeniable enchantment that filled the air, coaxing them to embrace the adventure awaiting just around the next tree. In the heart of the enchanted glen, lush greenery sprawled beneath a canopy of ancient trees, their gnarled roots twisting like the whimsical fingers of long-forgotten fairies. Alara, a sprightly girl with untamed curls that danced in the breeze, breathed in the intoxicating scent of wildflowers mingling with damp earth. But this beauty held a haunting secret, one that made her heart race with both wonder and dread. It's not all sunshine and unicorns here, is it, Fennel? She asked, quirking an eyebrow as the tiny, squirrel-like creature perched on her shoulder shivered with unease. His wide eyes reflected a seriousness that made her gut churn, for even the soft gurgle of the nearby stream seemed to echo a foreboding tale about to unfold. Fennel inhaled deeply and replied, "The magic here is delicate, Alara. It's like trying to balance a stack of pancakes while riding a unicycle messy and prone to disaster." The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting ethereal beams that danced upon the glen's foliage. Yet ominous shadows crept ever closer as Fennel draped the truth over Alara like a heavy cloak. He spoke of the guardians, majestic beings tethered to each tree, maintaining harmony within the enchanted realm. But a dark sorceress, envious and bitter like a spoiled child, cast a malicious curse that made them flicker like weak candle flames on the verge of snuffing out. Their disappearance is like trying to find a Wi-Fi signal in a cave with no service, impossible and utterly catastrophic. Fennel lamented, his tiny paws clenched in frustration. Alara's resolve hardened with each word, her heart thundering like a marching band, an exhilarating mix of purpose and fear sparking fiercely within her spirit as she vowed to save the guardians of their magical home. With determination coursing through her veins, Alara stood taller, her courage ready to tackle even the grumpiest of trolls. All right, let's map out our quest. Fennel, do we need a treasure map? Or should we pack a first aid kit for potential fairy dust accidents? Alara joked, her eyes shining with mischief in the face of looming danger. Fennel chuckled, the sound like tiny bells chiming. But the laughter quickly faded as he gestured toward the uncharted territories that awaited them. Twisted paths lined with sinister thorns, bramble bushes sharp enough to give you a run for your money, and perhaps even the foul smell of goblin stew wafting through the air made Alara's stomach turn. We're going for a stroll through the funhouse of doom, I see. She teased back, though a hint of anxiety crept as she fluffed her hair, trying to appear nonchalant. As they ventured deeper into the glen, the shadows thickened like a kettle boiling over, with dark tendrils that seemed to grasp for them, whispering long-lost secrets in a tongue that made the hair on the back of Alara's neck prickle. Each step forward felt as if they were dragging their feet through honey, the air growing heavy with tension as they cleverly maneuvered past the watchful eyes of the sorceress's minions. A gang of snickering gremlins with bad breath. The rustle of leaves felt like urgent whispers warning them of the imminent danger lurking nearby. An unwelcome breeze carrying with it a pungent odor of mold and muddy mischief. Guess we should have packed a few air fresheners. Huh. Fennel quipped, his eyes darting nervously, but Alara laughed. And maybe some fairy repellent too, she shot back, her spirit ignited by their camaraderie as they prepared to face whatever trials lay ahead. By the edge of a shadowy grove, an ancient tree loomed before them, its trunks gnarled with age and wisdom, letting out soft creaks like tired old bones. Here, a flicker of hope sparkled like freshly polished armor, for they sensed a guardian still lingering, if only in the whispers of the wind. Alara reached out, fingers brushing the rough bark, feeling a pulse of magic beckoning her to lean closer, while Fennel urged caution, eyes darting behind them for any signs of their elusive foe. In that moment, wrapped in the aura of forgotten magic and the sweet scent of cedar, Alara's heart raced with exhilarating defiance. We're going to save you, dear guardian, she declared, her voice resonating with bravery, as if channeling the very essence of the enchanted glen and all its mysteries. And with that, their quest spiraled into a thrilling whirlwind, leaving behind laughter, fear, and the promise of triumph against darkness. Once upon a time in the enchanted glen, where the sun dappled the emerald leaves, and laughter bubbled from unseen springs, a young girl named Alara stood beside her companion, Fennel the sprite. The air was thick with the fragrant scent of wildflowers, but beneath the beauty lay a sense of urgency. Danger loomed like a shadow, creeping ever closer to the heart of their enchanting realm. The guardians of the ancient trees, stoic beings with bark-like skin and eyes that shone like polished gemstones, were known for demanding proof of worthiness from those seeking to protect their home. It was as if they were auditioning for an epic fantasy series, and Alara was up for the lead role. Clumsy quips and all, the first trial appeared before them as a riddle, delivered in a voice like rustling leaves. Answer this question, sweet child. What grows stronger the more it is shared? Alara raised an eyebrow, the wheels of her mind turning like the gears of an antique clock. Friendship, she shouted triumphantly, feeling the rush of wind beneath her wings. Well, metaphorically speaking. The guardians nodded approvingly, their twinkling eyes betraying the satisfaction of a job well done, while Fennel smirked like he was watching a particularly cheesy reality show unfold. Alara felt a spark of magic flicker within her, as if a dormant dragon had finally awakened to stretch its wings. Next, a shimmering path unfurled before them, lined with luminescent mushrooms that hummed a melodic tune. The guardians instructed Alara to traverse this magical trail while blindfolded, trusting that her bond with Fennel would guide her safely. Mind you, it's not a dodgem car game, so don't bump into any trees or fairy furniture, he chuckled, his laughter like wind chimes in the summer breeze. The taste of excitement mingled with anxiety filled her mouth as she took a deep breath, feeling the cool, earthy aroma of the forest seep into her very bones. With her heart pounding like a drum at a concert, she set off, navigating through a dizzying wave of sounds and scents, each step echoing her newfound resolve. As she completed the second trial, a surge of energy enveloped her like a comforting quilt, and for the first time, Alara realized that her magic was not just a spark, but a raging inferno waiting to be unleashed. The trees whispered secrets, their bark vibrating with life, and she could almost hear the laughter of forgotten fairies fluttering around her, teasing her senses like bubbles in a soda pop. Fennel, perched on her shoulder, whispered words of encouragement that felt like a soft breeze teasing the edge of her determination. Alara could feel the threads of their friendship weaving tighter, a tapestry that told tales of shared laughter and whispered fears, and it was magnificent. She had stepped beyond mere courage. She was diving headlong into the exhilarating unknown. And oh, what a glorious plunge it was. Finally, they approached the last trial, a challenge that bubbled over with irony, a test of vulnerability in a place where courage was hailed above all. To show your true self, you must plunge into the waters of truths, the guardians declared, their expressions as serious as that moment in a movie when the hero faces a traumatic backstory. The glimmering water beckoned like a character arc waiting to be resolved. But Alara's stomach churned like a washing machine on overdrive. With heartfelt vulnerability, she splashed into the icy depths, allowing her fears and dreams to surface, creating ripples that sent shimmers of light dancing across the glen. In that moment, she smiled, feeling the embrace of the glen's magic around her, knowing she wasn't just becoming a protector. She was becoming a part of the story itself. In the heart of the enchanted glen, shadows writhed like living creatures under the ominous command of the dark sorceress, Maldora. The air crackled with tension, heavy laden with the scent of damp earth and the bitterness of fear. Alara, her heart pounding like a drum at a rock concert, felt the weight of her doubts circle around her like a flock of angry crows. Beside her, Fennel tempered his own jitters with the bravado of a bard preparing for an epic tale, though his fingers trembled slightly as he gripped his staff. Together, they stood on the precipice of magic and mayhem, ready to challenge an ancient foe who would rather swirl in shadows than face the light of day. Or, as they say in the movies, the hero's journey had officially begun as Maldora unleashed a volley of dark energy that crackled like bad fireworks. Alara felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. The ground shook beneath her feet, and she could almost hear the ancient trees whispering their encouragement in a language lost to time. This is just like that scene in The Lord of the Rings, where the good guys face off against the forces of Sauron. Alara thought, channeling that cinematic courage. With a determined yell that could rival any blockbuster hero, she called forth the guardians, the very spirits of the glen, whose whispers had guided them to this moment. Flashes of luminescent energy erupted from the ancient trees, illuminating their forms in a dazzling dance of light. And suddenly, the air felt lighter, the fears quaking away into the depths of the shadowy corners. Fennel stepped forward, a flicker of boldness now igniting his eyes. "Let's show that dark diva who's boss," he shouted, waving his staff like a firebrand. As he summoned the winds to swirl around him, a tempest of leaves and light spiraled chaotically, carrying with it the smell of fresh pine and the hint of something sweetly magical like sugar on the breeze. The glen seemed to resonate with their determination, the ancient trees creaking and groaning in approval as tendrils of light erupted from their roots, entwining themselves with the very essence of the battle. With every spell they cast, the duo felt the echoes of their guardians' past victories ignite within them, fueling their resolve in ways both deep and profound. As the clash reached its zenith, the sorceress retaliated with tendrils of shadow, slithering toward them like an unwelcome serpent. Alara's voice rang out, a clarion call that cut through the thick air. We fight for every glance of sunlight that that filters through these ancient leaves. With a fierce thrust of her hand, she unleashed a wave of light so brilliant it felt as though daylight had breached the heart of midnight itself. The glen erupted in a symphony of color. Bright oranges, greens, and blues danced amongst the chaos like wild fireflies celebrating the onset of summer. Music pulses through the foliage, a cosmic jam session between the trees and the guardians, as nature herself joined the battle with vibrant magic. And with that final surge of light, the heart of darkness began to falter. Maldora screeched, an ear-piercing wail that sounded suspiciously like the last call of a screech owl, lost and confused before dawn, with her illusions shattering about her like a badly tuned lute. The energy of hope and strength from the guardians surged forth, washing over the glen like a warm sunbeam breaking through a storm cloud, as Alara and Fennel stood tall against the sorceress. Laughter bubbled up within them, surreal against the backdrop of battle. They knew now that darkness might threaten, but in that moment they were the light, one that would not fade, but would instead rekindle the magic resonating in every leaf, every branch, and every hidden fairy who had waited too long for the enchantment of their home to rise again. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the enchanted glen came alive in ways that had long been forgotten. The air shimmered with an electric buzz, bursting with the scent of dew-kissed grass and blooming wildflowers. Ancient trees, once withered and sour like a forgotten lemon, now stood tall and proud, their leaves crowns of vibrant emerald glistening in the morning light. Birds of every color sang joyfully, their chorus harmonizing like a soundtrack to a grand fantasy film, one where Alara was undoubtedly the star, and who wouldn't cheer for the gal who broke the curse, brushed off the grime of the old curse, and made magic feel like it was back in its prime, refusing to settle for background noise. Alara basked in the glow of her newfound fame, wearing a look of sheer delight mixed with the bemusement of suddenly finding yourself in a PowerPoint presentation after years of quietly blending in. Garlands made from shimmering fairy lights and freshly plucked flowers adorned her hair, and the fairies, as flirtatious as a group of giggling schoolgirls, twirled around her like confetti, albeit a bit more sparkly and far less sticky. "You'd think I was crowned queen," she laughed, brushing off the twinkling dust that clung to her sleeves, reminding her of all the fairy mischief from last night's fun. Fennel, now looking positively dapper in his tiny waistcoat, declared, "And rightfully so, your bravery deserves a statue. Just consider it a tiny replica, perfect for the mantle." As the celebrations rolled on, Alara faced a pivotal choice that felt like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. The invitation to remain a guardian of the glen dangled before her like the last slice of pizza at a party. Could she really turn it down? With the ancient trees swaying gently, their whispers of wisdom echoing in her mind, she felt the weight of their roots embrace her spirit. This was no simple quest. It was a lifelong commitment, a pact woven in the fabric of magic itself, a glorious contract that came with a disclaimer: lots of laundry on laundry day. But fail-safe or not, Alara knew deep down that her heart belonged here, where the glen's pulse matched her own. With a spirit full of hope, Alara clasped hands with Fennel, sealing their promise like childlike friends, swearing allegiance over silly wristbands. The moment felt monumental, like Tony Stark declaring he was Iron Man for the first time, sassy and tinged with just a hint of seriousness, as the fairies sprinkled their magic like pixie stardust on their new pact. The glen erupted in a symphony of colors and scents, a fragrant fiesta of jasmine and honeysuckle dancing through the air. Alara laughed as the fairies dropped fairy dust onto Fennel's head, transforming his tuft of hair into a sparkling mess, giving the rather dapper fellow a new title, Fennel the Fantastic. Their laughter echoed through the glen, ricocheting off the trees, who seemed to shrug off their centuries of gloom, blooming brighter, as if nature itself was saying, "It's about time we had some fun." As the sun climbed higher, bathing the glen in a golden hue, a newly vibrant world unfurled before Alara. It was as if the ancient curse had been nothing more than a black and white film, and now, with her decisive victory, color surged forth like a splash of paint on a dull canvas. The old stories, once buried under the weight of despair, now blossomed into legends born anew of fairies who flit about with new enthusiasm, and trees that whispered secrets only the bravest would dare to uncover. Alara embraced her role not just as a guardian, but as a link between past magic and future wonders. With the enchanting symphony of a new dawn, the glen set the stage for countless adventures, yet to unfold ready for another epic quest, complete with probably too many puns and the odd singing tree, in a village embraced by rolling hills and kissed by an endless sea of blue. Alara, the elder, stood like the rock of Gibraltar, weathered yet steadfast. Her silver hair danced like willow branches in the wind, and her eyes sparkled with the wisdom of countless nights spent gazing at the starry vault above. The villagers, clad in their earth-toned garments, often gathered around her, like moths drawn to a flickering flame, eager to hear her observations of the heavens. Each night was a tapestry, stitched together with constellations and whispers of ancient stories, guiding them in planting seeds and harvesting bounty. With every low murmur and knowing glance, Alara imparted knowledge that felt magical, as though the cosmos itself wove its threads into their daily lives. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange and royal purple, a peculiar brightness fractured the darkness. An otherworldly comet streaked across the heavens. The villagers gawked, mouths agape like fish out of water, every heart thrumming with equal parts wonder and unease. Was this flickering celestial light a joyous harbinger of abundance, or a mischievous trickster announcing upheaval? The air crackled with palpable tension, as if the entire village held its breath, trying to decode a cosmic riddle that had just taken center stage. A true cliffhanger worthy of a Saturday morning cartoon episode, if you will. Alara, sensing the anxious undercurrent, chuckled, her laughter rich like honeyed tea, comforting the worried hearts around her. "Fear not," she called out, eyes twinkling with mischief. "For you see, this comet isn't just a skypunk intruder flinging itself into our tranquility. It is a messenger, a galactic postcard, perhaps reminding us that even the stars have their wild moments." Now, if only she had a crystal ball that told her if this celestial visitor was the precursor to bountiful harvests or a meteor-sized headache, life would be a bit easier. But such is the charm of the universe, full of surprises, like finding out your favorite sitcom has unexpectedly been renewed for another season. Under the tapestry of stars, the villagers huddled closer, their faces lit with the glow of curiosity and primal apprehension. They echoed Alara's words, turning them over in their minds like stones in a stream, contemplating the fate that lay ahead. As children darted between the adults, giggling nervously, the rich scent of damp earth mixed with fragrant herbs filled the air, stirring memories of past harvests and festive nights beneath the moon. But amidst the laughter, there lingered a seriousness too. Tales circulated of comets that signaled great changes or misfortune, like a bad hair day that turned into a week-long saga of hair drama. But did anyone heed those old tales anymore? It seemed the debate over this cosmic anomaly would have to simmer like home-style chicken soup, while Alara stirred the conversations back to the bigger picture. With her voice as steady as the North Star, Alara reminded the villagers that every comet, every twinkling star held a story, a lesson buried deep in their celestial dance. "Remember, my dear friends," she said, waving her hands dramatically as if conducting an orchestra of stars. "In every change lies the seed of opportunity. Who knows what wonders may blossom from the chaos of the unknown?" And as they gazed upward, minds swirling with dreams and fears, the villagers felt a pulse of excitement, for the sky was not only a stretch of darkness, but a canvas of endless possibilities just waiting to be explored, a reminder from their ancestors that above them, a universe of hope twinkled and pulsed, urging them to step forth into a new chapter of their own stories. Under a velvet blanket of night, pierced by the fiery trail of a comet, Alara stood beneath the ancient oak, its gnarled branches cradling secrets of yore. The air buzzed with anticipation as villagers gathered, their faces illuminated by the ghostly glow of stars. "Look up, my children." Alara's voice rang out like a bell, beckoning the curious souls to lean closer. She began weaving tales of constellations, Orion with his belt of warriors poised for battle, and Cassiopeia, the vain queen forever trapped in her celestial throne. Each story danced between whispers and laughter, sending shivers down spines, filling hearts with a sense of belonging, as if they were cosmic travelers navigating through the vast tapestry of time itself. Yet amidst the reverence, a skepticism brewed, boiling like a pot of stubborn stew. Kale, a bright-eyed young man with the curiosity of a cat in a room full of laser pointers, sat with furrowed brows. He admired the stars, but not without a hint of irreverence, staring at them like a cynical teenager eyeing their parents' old vinyl records. "Why should I count on tales from the past?" he eventually blurted, puncturing the reverie with a sharp, ironic grin. "Shouldn't I forge my own path? It's the 21st century. We've got apps for everything." The laughter that followed felt like a soft punch to tradition, leaving a tinge of discomfort in the cool night air. As the elders exchanged wary glances, an invisible rift widened between those who embraced the stories of the skies and the newcomers who sought to redefine them. Kale rose like a pop star on a stage, fueled by ambition and the intoxicating nectar of modernity. He declared his desire to map the stars, not just relying on the lore of Alara's generation, but armed with scientific charts and the rebellious spirit of the day. Determined, he envisioned nights spent tramping through fields with a telescope as his trusted sidekick, ready to unveil the universe's secrets. Ah, if only the stars could roll their eyes, they'd have been sending Kale a cosmic facepalm. Alara, sensing the turbulence in the air, felt a pang of loss for the traditions that tethered their village to the cosmos. She could smell the faint whiff of burnt sage lingering from earlier ceremonies, recalling how stargazing was not just a pastime, but a lifeline connecting generations. Her heart ached as she realized that Kale's challenge was more than a simple desire for knowledge. It was a fight against the winds of change that threatened to uproot traditions as visible as the North Star. "We are not merely stardust, dear Kale. We are storytellers, weaving bonds through the tapestry of the skies." Her passionate plea wrapped around the crowd like a warm embrace, hoping to reignite the passion for their shared heritage. As tension crackled like static in the air. Kale stood firm, eyes glimmering with a fire only ambition could fuel. The weight of choice settled heavily on his shoulders. Honor tradition or carve a new way in the cosmos. He could hear the call of the stars whispering promises of adventure. And yet the stories lingered, hauntingly beautiful in their simplicity, like an old song that refuses to fade. A battle loomed between the allure of innovation and the comfort of the past, as profound as the comet streaking overhead. In this celestial struggle, both Kale and Alara held their breath, for in the end, it might not matter who mapped the stars, but rather how they learned to dance around them together. Under a sky still waking from its twilight slumber, Kale and his motley crew of doubters strode into the wilderness, laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. I swear, if those twinkling dots are nothing but rocks, we'll confront them like rock stars, without a plan, a tribute to stupidity, he quipped, earning a chorus of half-hearted chuckles. The group, however, wasn't just running on bravado. They carried skepticism as their banner, convinced that nature was just a cosmic gimmick created to distract humanity from the eternal boredom of life. Yet, as they plodded deeper among the towering pines and damp earth, an odd tension crackled in the air, thick as the humidity that clung to their skin. The forest stood silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant chatter of their descent, as if it too was mocking their quest with a knowing grin in the growing shadows. Then, just as the first whispers of doubt began to creep in, a storm swooped down upon them like an uninvited guest. Rain clattered against branches, creating a cacophony that drowned out their banter, while the furious wind snatched at their hats and hopes alike. Kale, now wrestling with an umbrella that resembled a defeated parachute, glanced around to find his companions lost in their own battle against nature's tantrum. I didn't sign up for a wet t-shirt contest with the elements, shouted Renee, her voice edged with both humor and panic. The wild storm seemed to laugh with them, a reminder that the universe didn't care for their theories as much as they did. They were mere pawns in a game far grander than anyone in the group had anticipated. As twilight surrendered to night, their surroundings morphed into a landscape of dread. The glow of their dying campfire flickered like a movie projector stuck on a horror film. Shadows danced grotesquely amidst the trees, while eerie sounds reverberated in the underbrush. Each snap of a twig sent shivers down their spine. Images of rabid raccoons and hungry bears flitting through their minds like grandmothers' bedtime horror stories. Confined by their own unease, the reality of their vulnerability gnawed at Kale, who once so confidently scoffed at the mysteries overhead. Perhaps he wasn't just hunting for proof, but also burying his own fear beneath skepticism. The bigger the facade, the deeper the self-deception. Right, with every passing minute in the darkened woods, camaraderie began to fray, spun thin by fatigue and fear. Ilara, the quiet observer among them, finally broke her silence, her voice steady as she recounted tales of old stories where the stars guided wanderers home and whispered secrets to the lost. It was rather ironic. Here they were, survivors of the 21st century, wrestling with technology and memes, yet utterly clueless about reading the very sky above them. What good are your rocks now? She chuckled, her eyes glimmering with mischief and wisdom, igniting a flicker of realization in their hearts, reminding them that knowledge often lies within the things we dismiss so easily. As the winds howled like lost spirits, they couldn't help but wonder if they needed Ilara's wisdom more than they needed to prove a point about the cosmos. Later, as the sky whispered secrets through the branches and the storm receded, the night revealed a cosmic canvas scattered with glittering gems. Kale's heart thudded, no longer an indifferent observer, but a participant in something much larger. The stars were magical, aliens, ancient sailors guiding the lost. They were not mere rocks, but rather companions on their path of exploration. In the face of nature's fury and their own inner turmoil, they emerged with a new kind of understanding, one that spoke to the heart rather than the head. The journey became an odyssey, not of proving the stars wrong, but of discovering themselves anew under that vast, twinkling narrative of the night. The sky loomed overhead, a bruised canvas of charcoal and deep indigo. Kale and his friends huddled together against the biting wind, their faces etched with panic as the first rumbles of thunder clawed at the air. They were lost, the path home swallowed by the dense, twisting woods that now felt like a menacing labyrinth. It was as if the universe had conspired against them, leaving them wandering with the collective conviction of a herd of headless chickens. Kale clutched at his cloak, the damp fabric clinging to his skin like an unwelcome second layer, and wondered just how wrong their adventure had gone. Wasn't this supposed to be a quest? Not a beat-up episode of a bad reality show solving crimes in the great outdoors. Then came the storm, crashing down like a toddler throwing a tantrum. The trees bent and twisted, their branches snapping like overcooked spaghetti, while sheets of rain poured from the heavens, turning the world into a slick, chaotic slip-and-slide. Kale and his friends scrambled, searching for higher ground, their hearts pounding louder than the thunder that boomed like an angry celestial giant. They climbed a rugged hill, a granite sentinel that loomed above all else, fighting against the gale that threatened to toss them back into the darkened abyss below. As they reached the top, breathless and soaked to their bones, A cacophony of nature enveloped them. The scent of wet earth mixed with the tang of ozone, electrifying the air around them. And then it happened, a moment that stilled the chaos around them. The clouds began to part, as if an unseen hand gently peeled back the curtain of darkness, revealing an awe-inspiring sight, a celestial alignment brighter than the flickering stars of a disco ball. There, against the vast tapestry of the night sky, a new constellation unfolded, its points of light forming a stunning figure that seemed to wink down at them. A beacon of hope and wonder. Cale's heart swelled as he realized he was looking at the very embodiment of guidance, ancestors smiling down, whispering tales of bravery and survival. Was this what they meant by "the stars are always watching"? For a second, he almost expected a faint voice to announce, "Congratulations. You found the way out, Star." In that breathtaking moment, Cale felt the weight of history resting on his shoulders, as if the ghosts of his forebears were rallying around him like a celestial pep squad. The stars were not just cold balls of gas, but warm, living stories etched into the very fabric of his people's legacy, navigators of treacherous terrains. Just like them, he thought of the village stories echoing in the depths of his memory, how the ancients had looked up at the sky not as mere stargazers, but as navigators of fate, mapping their lives among the constellations. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here they were, lost and powerless. Yet in the darkest moment, the stars had gifted them a map, a compass, or at the very least, a cosmic high five. Waxing poetic about the universe may have earned him eye rolls at home, but right now, it felt like they were all in the presence of something larger than life. As the last remnants of the storm lingered like bad karaoke after the party's over, Cale understood the importance of that moment. It was more than just a beautiful sight. It was a reminder that even in hopeless times, there existed a constellation of hope, each star a shining testament to perseverance, and the adventures still waiting in the uncharted of tomorrows. With each glimmering point of light, he felt the primal connection between his journey and those who had walked the same paths centuries before him. Laughter bubbled within him as he rallied his friends, pointing to their newfound sky map, turning their plight into a quest for home. And though they were still drenched and battered, in their hearts, a flicker of hope ignited, swirling brighter than stars, illuminating the endless night. As Cale and his friends trudged back to the village, the night air swirled thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, each breath a refreshing reminder of their journey beneath the vast canopy of stars. Their hearts pounded with excitement, not just from the ascent they had conquered, but from the treasure trove of knowledge now sparkling in their minds like constellations overhead, once mere flickers in the night sky. The stars had transformed into familiar friends, whispering secrets of navigation, time, and stories that danced from age to age. They shared chuckles and anecdotes, a chorus of voices blending with the rustle of leaves, making the darkness resonate with their unquenchable spirit of discovery. Next time, let's just take the spaceship, joked Jarin, pointing at a particularly bright star. That one looks ready for takeoff. As they approached the village, the comforting glow of torches flickered like fireflies on a summer's night, illuminating familiar faces eager for tales of adventure. Ilara, the village matriarch, stood at the entrance, her eyes widening in surprise as her beloved trio emerged from the shadows, adorned with the knowledge of the universe. You three look like you wrestled with a cloud of bees. She laughed, the sound warm as freshly baked bread. Her embrace enveloped them, bringing with it a sense of belonging stronger than any celestial bond. Under the flickering lights, their laughter echoed, weaving a new fabric of hope for their community, one that entwined the wisdom of ancestors with the vigor of youth. Gathered around the central fire, the villagers leaned in, expectant, hungry for the stories their heroes brought back. Kale couldn't help but wave his arms grandly, creating images of cosmic wonders, comets streaking across the sky, constellations coming alive like characters in a movie. The villagers gasped and laughed at the antics of the star spirits, their imaginations igniting like the flames that danced before them. Through every twist and turn of Kale's tale, they shared in the connections, grappling with the echoes of the past while delighting in the thrill of the new. In that moment, the air crackled not just with heat, but with an electric sense of unity. The heart of their village pulsing in resonance with the cosmic rhythm above them. But what does it all mean? Old Thorn, the grumpy grocer with a beard as grizzled as a wild bear, chimed in, his voice as rough as gravel, but full of genuine curiosity. Kale realized then that the key was not merely sharing knowledge, but unlocking a dialogue between generations, bridging the old with the fresh. Ilara's eyes twinkled like starlight as she addressed Thorn, explaining how the constellations had guided their ancestors, serving as maps for navigating the trials of life on Earth. People didn't have Google Maps, you know, she quipped, earning a few chuckles. The villagers nodded, resolutely aware that the stars had been more than just a decorative quilt draped over their world. They were timeless guides through both night and day, urging them towards growth and unity, determined to celebrate both the whispers of the past and the roar of new knowledge. Kale and his friends led the villagers in a grand recommitment ceremony under the celestial vault. With tiny lanterns in hand, they recited ancient incantations that had fallen into oblivion, now revived like the phoenix of legends. The flickering lights mirrored the stars above, creating a roof of dreams as each voice harmonized with the celestial symphony overhead. As laughter and prayer filled the air, they felt the heavy weight of tradition lightened by the brightness of understanding. From that night forward, they vowed to honor the stars, ensuring their guidance would weave through the tapestry of their lives like threads of gold, binding generation to generation, wisdom to wonder, under that endless, starry sky. In the picturesque village of Eldoria, where cottages wore moss like a favorite old sweater, and chickens clucked conspiratorially in the yard, lived a girl named Lyra, with a shock of wild hair that mirrored the tangled underbrush of the sleeping hills. She was a force of nature, bubbling with curiosity and mischief. The village folk often chided her, warning, "Stay away from the hills, Lyra, they're filled with spirits and shadows." But truthfully, the hills called to her like a siren's song, promising adventures hidden beneath their time-worn facade, like a treasure chest filled with family photos. If only you dared to open it. It was on one of those golden-tinted evenings, with a sun that melted like butter across the horizon, that fate nudged her toward destiny. On that fateful evening, with the air ripe with the earthy scent of damp soil and wildflowers, Lyra discovered something peculiar sticking out of the ground. Curiosity pulled her closer, heart drumming like a marching band on parade day. With a determined twist of her hands, she unearthed an ancient artifact, half buried and half revealed, resembling a sun-drenched seashell, not of this world, whispering secrets that tickled her ears like the gentle teasing of a breeze. She imagined the dust of centuries dancing in the air as she held it, a piece of the puzzle that hinted at an ancient civilization, one that probably had more drama than a soap opera on a Tuesday afternoon. The thrill of possibility sent shivers down her spine, illuminating her spirit like fireflies igniting the night sky. Legends swirled in Lyra's mind like leaves caught in a chaotic gust, conjuring tales of an ancient tribe that thrived on the very hills she called home. They were rumored to possess wisdom that could rival Yoda's, and a knack for crafting artifacts that could bend the laws of nature. Eldoria's elders spoke of their connection to the land, how they danced under the moonlight with the echoes of forgotten songs weaving through the air like a familiar tune just out of reach. Lyra wanted nothing more than to join in their ancient revelry. After all, who wouldn't want to have a moonlit dance-off with a ghost? She longed to peel back the layers of time and reveal the stories that lay entombed in the hill's embrace. Fueled by the discovery, Lyra donned her trusty backpack, a trusted sidekick for her escapades, filled with snacks, a flashlight, and an ever-important notebook for jotting down the quirky. often disastrous details of her quests, she set off toward the hills with the fiery determination of a hero about to face down a dragon in a fantasy epic. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine needles, and with each step, she felt the heartbeat of the hills resonate beneath her feet, like a drum signaling the start of an ancient ritual. She couldn't shake the sensation that every footfall echoed the footsteps of those who walked before her, all armed with secrets and stories that needed sharing. Who knew? Maybe she'd finally find her very own Gandalf to guide her through this wild adventure. As Lyra approached the hills, the landscape shifted dramatically, transforming from a serene village into a wild tapestry of sharp rocks, cascading ferns, and ancient trees that spread their gnarled limbs like wise old sages. Her heart raced, not just from the thrill of discovery, but from an unshakable feeling that she was about to unlock secrets buried deep in the earth's embrace. Like uncovering the twist at the end of a mystery novel you just can't put down. She imagined wild animals would pop out of the shadows to applaud her bravery, while the wind would swirl around her as if it were whispering, "Welcome home." With each heartbeat, the promise of the past surged through her veins, melding the girl from Eldoria with the whispers of the sleeping hills on a quest to rewrite history. One small step at a time, with a determined spark igniting in her heart, Lyra made her way to old Mara's quaint cottage, nestled at the edge of the village like a weary bird on a branch. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and the faint crackle of a wood fire, creating a cozy contrast to the biting chill of the outside world. Each step crunched on the gravel path beneath her feet, a rhythmic companion to her racing thoughts. Here was the font of wisdom and tales, that ancient mariner of folklore, ready to unveil the stories of the sleeping hills. Would she tell of love lost in moonlit glades, or betrayals that echoed through time? Lyra could almost hear the whispers of the wind pleading, "Ask her. Find out." Mara leaned back in her creaky chair, eyes sparkling with age-old mischief as she spun a tapestry of the past with her words. "You see, child," she began, her voice a low rumble like thunder rolling over the hills. "These mountains hold more secrets than the villagers dare to imagine. Love once blossomed here, like a stubborn flower peeking through frost, yet it was often met with bitter betrayal, a sauce for tragedy that seasoned the land. Each tale was a savory slice of history, and Lyra devoured every morsel in anticipation of the feast that lay ahead. Jace, perched on the edge of his seat like a curious puppy, couldn't help but channel his inner nerd, muttering references to long-lost relics that Indiana Jones would salivate over. But they felt light years away from their mundane routines. Emboldened by old Mara's sagas, Lyra and Jace set their sights on the hills, climbing the rugged terrain like adventurers on a quest, their laughter echoing against the stones. Each gust of wind seemed to sing to them, a cold whistle urging them onward, while ominous clouds gathered above like a theatrical curtain ready to drop. The path narrowed, rocky tendrils jutting from the earth, and soon the weather transformed into a relentless onslaught, bitter rain that soaked through their clothes, chilling them to the bone. Yet there was exhilaration in the discomfort, a camaraderie in their shared suffering, a kind of bizarre bonding experience like gym class, but with more mud. Every squelching step was another note in their echoing pursuit of ancient truths, a beautiful mess of youth and bravery clad in soggy jackets. As they carved deeper into the heart of the hills, an unsettling silence fell upon them, broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures slinking through the underbrush. It was as though the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for that fateful moment when they stumbled upon the remnants of an ancient ritual site. Intricate stone formations lay scattered like puzzle pieces of a nightmarish jigsaw, covered in moss and shadows. Jace's voice trembled with the thrill of discovery. The duo's excitement waged war against the creeping trepidation in Lyra's gut, like that unbearable feeling of leaving the lights off when walking to the dark kitchen late at night. The atmosphere crackled with mystery, and somewhere in the distance, a guttural growl vibrated through the air, perhaps a warning, perhaps an invitation, an irony that only deepened their curiosity, drawing them nearer to the secrets entombed within the hills. In that moment of revelation, as the sight unfurled before them like a grim and complicated welcome mat, Lyra felt a strange blend of fear and fascination wrap around her like an old, musty cloak. The history of the sleeping hills washed over her like icy water, igniting every nerve ending while simultaneously freezing her thoughts. It was a landscape of contrasts, where every shadow beat with the echoes of 1,000 forgotten stories, of lives entwined with fate's dark threads. They were no longer mere spectators in a tale. They had unwittingly stepped into its very fabric. With a cautious breath, Lyra nudged Jace, sharing a glance that echoed their unspoken promise. They would dig deeper, no matter what guardians half hidden in the mist awaited them, even if it meant unearthing more than they bargained for. The hills of Eldoria whispered secrets long buried under centuries of silence, their craggy peaks standing like ancient sentinels against the twilight sky. Lyra and her brave companions, hearts fluttering with the thrill of adventure, ventured deeper into the woods, the thick underbrush crunching beneath their eager feet. As they wandered, the air thickened with the musky scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, urging them onward like a ghostly hand. Little did they know, their laughter echoed like a disco ball in an empty room, summoning something unimaginable from the depths of the earth, a spirit bound by millennia to guard the hill's mysteries, now stirring uneasily from its slumber, groaning like the world's grumpiest old man woken from a nap. And just like that, with the flick of a fateful moment, the peaceful hills erupted with the fury of something long forgotten, but far from forgiving. The spirit, a swirling mass of shadow and malice, was not the friendly neighborhood ghost they had hoped for, but rather an angry gust of wind that knocked Lyra's favorite hat clean off her head. With each gust, the landscape seemed to twist and contort, as if the very earth was a reflection of the spirit's rage, sending heavy branches crashing down around them. Eldoria, once a quaint little village where the most scandalous affair was Mrs. Mallory's missing petunias, found itself drenched in dread. The townsfolk, gripped by the scent of impending doom and surprise yelps, hurried about like ants whose hill had just been stomped on. Lyra's heart sank. That moment of awakening was the spark that ignited chaos, and she felt as if she had set off a firecracker in a quiet library, a real page-turner of a disaster unfolding before her eyes. Fury swelled within the spirit's presence, a maelstrom of bitterness and regret that reverberated through the very air they breathed. Lyra could hear the sinister whispers overlaying the cacophony of her friends, panicked exclamations, like a long-lost soundtrack playing just for her, inviting her to step closer to the edge of darkness. Gritting her teeth, she recalled the tales spun by old Gramps Hilwick about spirits pining for understanding, especially those who'd been misunderstood in life. Surely, she thought, under all that angst, the spirit was just a misunderstood guy in a tragic backstory, probably had a fraught relationship with his mother, too, or at least a really bad haircut. And as the wind howled in response, tossing leaves like confetti across the afternoon sky, Lyra made a solemn promise to face the storm and appease the haunting force wreaking havoc on her home. With a newfound determination steeling her spine, Lyra rallied her friends, the flicker of hope igniting a quest as fierce as her grandmother's infamous hot chili recipe. They knew that to calm the spirit's wrath, they had to flutter through the fabric of time itself, delving deep into the memories etched into the hills. The group gathered symbols, ancient and unusual, each one telling a story of love, loss, and battles fought between light and shadow. It was as if they were piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, but half the pieces had taken off on a holiday, thankfully. Lyra wore her lucky socks, each adorned with mythical creatures, because nothing says, "Trust me," like unicorns on your feet. through cliff tops that towered over shadows and caverns that whispered for visitors. They ventured onward, the air charged with both the smell of adventure and a faint whiff of trepidation. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of deciphering riddles that would stump even the cleverest quizmaster, they stood at the precipice of the hill's deepest secret. With trepidation, Lyra stepped forward, the cool mist wrapping around her like a protective shroud as she called out to the spirit, her voice trembling yet steadfast, faces illuminated by the flickering remnants of daylight. They presented their findings, the very essence of understanding, swirling with empathy and courage, forged in the trials of friendship. The spirit paused, the weight of years of rage hanging in the thick atmosphere like a sitcom's punchline just before the laughter track cuts in. And in that moment, as twilight embraced the hills, Lyra understood it wasn't just about vanquishing darkness, but embracing it. Because sometimes the scariest echoes of the past bring the most important lessons for the future. The wind howled like a banshee through the ancient trees, their gnarled limbs reaching out as if to grasp the very essence of Lyra's courage. It was at the sacred ritual site, blanketed in overgrown moss and peppered with remnants of forgotten ceremonies, that she found herself staring into the glowing eyes of the spirit. With a pulse that throbbed against her chest, she stood her ground. This was no mere ghost seeking revenge. This was a guardian, a warden of secrets, as gritty and relentless as a late-night horror flick she had binge-watched last Halloween. The air crackled with an intensity that felt like static before a storm. An electric promise of truth waiting to unfold between the living and the lost souls of the hills. As Lyra took a deep breath, the taste of damp earth mixed with the scent of decaying leaves filled her senses, grounding her in the moment. The spirit, shrouded in an ethereal glow, radiated both power and sadness. With every pulse of light, Lyra felt as if she were shrinking back from an impending avalanche of chilling realization. This spirit was not a force of evil looking to snatch her soul, but a worn guardian with the weight of 1,000 stories etched into its translucent form. It beckoned Lyra forward, challenging her not with threats, but with a labyrinth of memories that whispered the tragedies of a civilization long gone. In an ironic twist worthy of a Pixar plot, Lyra became the hero of her own story, her heart racing as she faced the spirit's challenge. What a ride it had been, from chasing rumors in the sleepy town to now standing toe-to-toe with an age-old spectre. As the spectre's voice echoed like a far-off train, Lyra understood she needed not raw strength, but a tapestry woven from empathy and sincerity. With each word she spoke, raw from her heart, she could almost feel the spirits of those lost around her, stirring softly as if to listen. "I am sorry for the disturbance," she implored, her voice steady, yet vulnerable like a whisper in a crowded room. "I promise to honor the lives once lived in these hills, to be their voice where none remains." The spirit paused, a flicker of doubt crossing its luminous features, as if considering the tangled web of Lyra's words. A collective sigh seemed to travel through the air, rippling like a pebble thrown into a still pond, awakening memories buried beneath layers of dust. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and the once dangerous energy began to shift. The spirit's essence began to shimmer with a softer glow. What had felt like an unyielding confrontation transformed into an unexpected dialogue, revealing long-buried secrets, tunnels of laughter, pain, and joy from a civilization that thrived centuries ago. As Lyra finally grasped the significance of the lost stories, her heart swelled, and she realized that peace was not a destination, but a journey shared with those who had come before her. With a final, shimmering ripple, the spirit surrendered the weight of its sorrow and began to unveil the truth, a tapestry of life that once colored the sleeping hills. Lyra listened intently, absorbing each revelation like a sponge, caught in a swell of emotions that rolled over her like waves, crashing on rocky shores. The ghosts weren't gone. They were simply waiting, living on in the whispers of the wind and rustling of leaves, part of a storyline that she now carried. In that breathless moment, laughter spilled from her lips as she dared to think how many awkward haunts and transcendental life lessons lived in these woods. The spirit had led her to a bridge between two worlds, each heartbeat echoing with a promise made to remember, to cherish, and to forge a brighter path glowing in the moonlight of forgotten histories. In the heart of Eldoria, beneath the shimmering glow of a twilight sky, Lyra and her friends stood tall against the weight of centuries of whispers. The air buzzed with an electricity that only comes when the past meets the present. A dance of spirits and secrets beneath the dappled leaves of the sleeping hills. After days of trials, they had finally appeased the ghostly guardian, whose sorrowful wails had echoed through the valleys like a distant thunderstorm. With a deep breath, Lyra felt the energy shift, a comforting warmth enveloping her like her grandmother's favorite quilt. It wasn't just the winds that sighed in relief. It was the very fabric of the hills, resting at peace once more, a slumbering giant content in its dreams of forgotten tales and ancient treasure hunts. As they journeyed back to the village, the friends were no longer the same wide-eyed adventurers who had set off just days before. They had been seasoned by legends and the weight of history. The grass beneath their feet seemed to sing the songs of their ancestors, each blade a note played in a grand symphony of continuity and camaraderie. Along the way, Lyra cracked jokes about how every good adventure needs a decent villain, though, in this case, it was a misunderstood spirit with a propensity for dramatic reenactments. The others couldn't help but chuckle, their laughter weaving through the trees, turning the melancholic echo of the past into a contemporary joy, interlaced with irony and relief. With every step, they felt a jolt, their connection to the hills, to the tales, and to each other, strengthening with every shared glance and hearty laugh. Upon returning to the village, the once quiet streets buzzed with the raucous energy of celebration, as if the very air was imbued with the essence of triumph. The villagers, unaware of the otherworldly adventures unfolding in their backyard, soon gathered around the bonfire, squinting through the smoke to catch a glimpse of Lyra and her companions. The flickering flames illuminated their eager faces as they huddled close, waiting for tales that would transport them beyond the mundane. With a flair that could only rival a seasoned bard, Lyra spun the stories of the sleeping hills, painting vivid images of spectral figures and echoing laughter that rang like the sweetest music. The smell of roasted chestnuts hung in the air, mingling with the stories, wrapping the villagers in a nostalgic embrace that promised to reignite their forgotten sense of history and honor their shared identity. As the night deepened, the villagers found themselves not just listening, but participating, weaving their own forgotten tales into the tapestry Lyra had laid out before them. A grandmother rose to share stories of her youth, speaking of secret picnic spots and legendary hideouts that had lain silent until tonight. The laughter was rich, and amidst the shared stories, Lyra felt a swell of emotion, the irony that in trying to understand the past, they were forging stronger connections in the present, reviving bonds that had dulled with time. The hills, silent yet eternally watchful like that one awkward uncle at family reunions, now felt less like a backdrop and more like a living part of their collective soul. And as the voices lifted in laughter and love, Lyra realized that they were creating new echoes, crafting legends that would resonate far into the future. With the last embers of the bonfire glowing faintly in the night, Lyra's heart felt full, ignited by dreams of future explorations and the adventures waiting just around the bend. She stood gazing at the sleeping hills, their silhouettes now comforting rather than foreboding, each one a keeper of secrets and stories that would be shared for generations. In that moment, Lyra vowed to protect the whispers of the past, to ensure that no secret would be buried or left to fade like an old movie reel, collecting dust in a forgotten attic. And now, with a hint of mischief in her eyes, she wondered what other mysteries awaited them through the bending trails and hidden caves. A treasure map in the shape of a smile that beckoned them to keep seeking. After all, the hills had long slumbered, but with allies by her side and stories to uncover, it seemed that their adventures would resonate far beyond the whispers of the past. Under the vast, shimmering canvas of stars, the desert came alive with the whispers of forgotten tales and the clattering of pots and pans. The air was thick with the scent of roasted lamb, mingling with the unmistakable aroma of spiced lentils as the fire crackled, sending sparks dancing into the night. A diverse congregation of travelers, traders, wanderers, and the odd wayward spirit took their places, eyes glinting with intrigue. Among them was Hakim, an elder with a beard as white as desert sand, a library of tales locked behind his twinkling eyes. His presence commanded the gathering, like a wise old owl perched on a gnarled branch, ready to share the secrets of the night with a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, promising adventure and a dash of mischief. As the moonlight poured like melted silver over the rolling dunes, Hakim cracked a sly smile and gestured for Layla to begin. She was a merchant, but her heart throbbed more for stories than for goods. With a glimmer of mischief, she launched into a humorous tale about a caravan that lost its way, guided only by the stubborn belief that chameleons could lead them right. After all, they could change colors, right? However, it turned out they were just as indecisive as her long-lost cousin Ahmed when he tried to choose a wedding dress, leading the hapless travelers in circles and leaving them thoroughly confused under the flickering stars. Laughter erupted like popcorn in a hot pan, mixing joy with the moonlit air. And even the timid young boy, Omar, found himself giggling as he gripped his knees like they were a lifebuoy in a sea of absurdity. Hakim saw the spark in Omar's eyes and leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Let me tell you about the spirits that guard these sands." A chill enveloped the group as he spoke of ancient spirits, descendants of forgotten gods, who roamed the dunes at night, searching for lost souls and wayward travelers. The glimmering stars felt like the eyes of those spirits, watching and listening, ready to snatch the unwary from their paths. As Hakim weaved his tale, the wind picked up, carrying with it the distant sound of a haunting flute, like the lament of a soul lost between worlds. "Beware," he cackled, his eyes twinkling like the stars above, "for they love nothing more than an audience. But fear not, they only steal the brave, those who would dare to follow their dreams into the unknown." Omar's imagination ignited, and in his youthful eagerness, he blurted out his own story, an idea he had nurtured like a fragile seed in the hot desert sun. He spoke of a magical map that could reveal the hidden paths of the desert, but only if the bearer remained true of heart. His voice wavered at first, resembling the fluttering of a desert moth trapped in a jar. But as he continued, it grew stronger, filled with the courage found in the laughter of friends and the moon's encouraging glow. The group leaned closer, captivated, as they envisioned the adventures awaiting brave souls armed with a map that sung with the voices of history. It was a story ripe with potential, wrapping them all in a tapestry of hope and possibility, reminding them that even the timid could carve their place in the great saga of life's journey. The night deepened, punctuated by the sounds of laughter and the crackling fire, as Layla spun another tale of caravans that danced upon the dunes, with camels that moonwalked better than most. Each story revealed layers of truth, humor, and irony, echoing through the gathering like the sweetest melodies sung by nightingales. The desert became a living canvas where every heart bared its colors, weaving a rich tapestry of legends and dreams illuminated under the stars. As the tales flowed like the cool desert breeze, the bonds between the travelers grew stronger, sparking the realization that perhaps they were not mere wanderers, but keepers of stories yet to be told. With the night still young and the horizon unfurling new mysteries, they knew that this gathering under the stars would resonate far beyond the moment, echoing in the very fabric of time itself. The flames flickered as the storyteller, an old man draped in tattered robes, settled himself beside the crackling fire. Shadows danced across his weathered face, his eyes twinkling with mischief as he began to weave the legend of the mystical caravan that had vanished beneath a blood moon. Every traveler around the camp listened with bated breath, some clutching their mugs of spicy tea, others nursing the eerie chill creeping into the air. As he spoke of treasures untold, jewels glimmering like stars and silks woven with magic, the desert around them felt alive, the winds whispering secrets of their own in the night sky. Meanwhile, a coyote's howl drifted through the stillness, serving as the perfect soundtrack to this tapestry of adventure that began to unfurl under the silvered gaze of the moon above. But among the enraptured crowd sat Layla, her heart pounding with each word that slithered into her ears. The story wasn't just enticing. It was as addictive as that last slice of pizza at a party, irresistible. She imagined herself galloping through the sands, harnessing a quest that ignited an ancient fire within her. With every twist in the tale, she could almost feel the grit of sand beneath her fingertips and the heat of the sun on her back, an adventure calling to her like a timeless siren. Her companions, however, smirked and feigned shrugs, the dismissive gestures of those too timid for tales of danger, their expressions like soggy bread compared to her robust appetite for the unknown. The storyteller's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, so deliciously secretive that the listeners leaned forward, breathless. "The blood moon," he declared, his voice quaking with reverence, "was said to awaken the spirits of the lost. It became a gateway to another realm." The night sky seemed to nod along, the moon's crimson hue illuminating the gathering like a god of mischief himself had taken a seat at their fire. But as the warmth of the narrative wrapped around them, Layla found her determination solidifying. No longer was she a mere spectator in someone else's story. She intended to brandish her own banner upon the desert sands, clutching her instinct like an off-brand superhero cape. She resolved to seek this lost caravan, much to the dismay of her more cautious friends. As she looked at her friends, their glances were a blend of disbelief and concern, akin to watching someone breathe fire at a birthday party. Thrilling, yet undoubtedly risky. "You're out of your mind, Layla," one of them blurted, laughter tinged with genuine worry, while another pretended to take cover behind a jar of pickled vegetables, the standby food of choice for a daring camping trip. Yet the taste of adventure was electric on her tongue, sparking a vibrant tapestry of possibilities. Each potential encounter with the unknown shimmered like the sequins on a disco ball, the allure of lost treasures and whispered secrets pulling her into a narrative bigger than herself. The very thought of long-forgotten riches, hidden away like the last piece of cake at an unwatched party, set her heart ablaze with excitement. With her mind made up, Layla rose, dusting the desert sand from her scarf with an assertive flick. A woman possessed by the dichotomy of courage and folly. She turned her back on the fire, the flickering flames casting a warm glow against the cooling night, and took her first steps into the unknown. The night wrapped around her like an embrace from an old friend, the stars sparkling with mischief overhead, as if celebrating her rebellious spirit. As the whispers of the desert sang and the mountains loomed like ghostly guardians, she could almost hear the echoes of the lost travelers urging her onward. Whatever awaited her, whether it would bring treasures or trouble, she was ready to dance with destiny beneath the desert moon. The first light of dawn splintered the horizon, scattering threads of gold across the endless expanse of sand. Layla stood at the edge of her village, the cool desert breeze teasing her hair like an impatient child. With each step forward, her heart beat in an eager rhythm, a drum roll announcing the start of her quest. Beside her, Omar, tall and sturdy like a palm tree against the wind, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I wasn't going to miss the chance to follow a legend and keep you out of trouble," he said with a smirk, his eyes sparkling with both mischief and sincerity. The sun peered over the dunes, and as if the universe itself had decided to join them, the two set out into the golden waves of the desert, leaving behind the familiar whispers of home for the howl of the unknown. As they walked, the sands shifted beneath their feet, each grain a tiny whisper of secrets and stories untold. Omar's protective instincts kicked into high gear when shadows began to dance on the horizon. Spectral wolves emerged, each one wreathed in moonlight and mystery, their glowing eyes pinning Layla and Omar with a chilling gaze. They appeared as guardians of an age-old tale, creatures woven from the fabric of fear and folklore. Omar chuckled nervously. Well, at least they don't have rabies. But Layla, feeling the weight of their watchful presence, swallowed her amusement as she realized these wolves weren't just harmless phantoms. They were the keepers of the stories of lost travelers, staring at them as if deciding whether they belonged to the world or the ethereal plane of wandering souls. With each step deeper into the desert, the warmth of the sun morphed into an oppressive heat, and soon both were drenched in sweat, a pungent mix of dirt and determination clinging to their skin. A little sweat never hurt anyone, Layla offered with a laugh, though her voice cracked slightly, hinting at her growing unease. They trudged on, the overwhelming expanse making her feel as small as a grain of sand. The air thickened with tension. Around them, the ghosts of lost souls whispered as the wind caught their faded echoes. Suddenly, Omar halted, turning to Layla with a frown, the seriousness of their quest settling upon him like a heavy shroud. Hakim told us about confronting our greatest fears, and let's be frank, I'm terrified of clowns. Is it too late to go back? She smirked, assuring him that even in the face of spectral wolves, clowns remained a greater hazard in their reality than here in the howling desert. As they ventured further, the path twisted under them, dips and rises, the sand seeming to mock their efforts with each uncompromising slope. The ground beneath was a fickle friend, shifting surreptitiously as night crept in, draping an inky darkness over the landscape. Layla felt a gnawing unease, and with it, the shadows of doubt crept into her thoughts, each one a tiny voice echoing the warnings of Hakim. The spirits of the lost travelers will haunt you, he'd said in hushed tones, his eyes darting to the shadows, as if afraid the very sands might hear him. Their bond was forged in the furnace of hardship and laughter, but the chill of uncertainty seeped into their camaraderie, threatening to fracture it like glass. Do you think they can smell our doubt? Omar joked, almost too lightheartedly. Yet Layla's silence told him that the stakes were as high as the moon hanging above them. The weight of their fears lingered in the air, but so did the thrill of discovery, a tantalizing mix that sparked margarita-like fire in their souls. It wasn't just about staying safe anymore. It was about unraveling the tales woven into the fabric of the desert. With each shuffling step, the darkness painted their shadows large and tall, as if announcing their passage to the lurking spirits. Lost travelers with stories half-told watched, their memories swirling like dust motes in the dying light, urging Layla and Omar forward. Together, they pressed on, guided as much by their bond as by the flickering light of the stars above that, like long-lost friends, beckoned them deeper into the unknown. And as the chilling call of the spectral wolves echoed through the night, they felt the pull of adventure, a sweet uncertainty wrapping them in its haunting embrace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, Layla and Omar trekked deeper into the shifting sands of the desert. A chill swept through the air, replacing the day's heat with a crispness that prickled at their skin. They squinted into the twilight, and there, shimmering like a mirage conjured by an overzealous genie, stood the remnants of a long-lost caravan. The flickering glow of campfires danced like fireflies, beckoning them closer, while the faint scent of roasting meat tickled their nostrils, making their stomachs grumble louder than a movie theater on discount Tuesdays. With each step, the adventure ahead felt like an old film, thrilling, mysterious, and full of surprising twists that only fate could script. As they brushed aside the sand to reveal ornate, dust-covered tents, a haunting melody floated through the air, like a chorus of whispers from the past. Layla's heart raced, both with fear and excitement. Who or what could be singing so sweetly beneath the moon's gaze? Suddenly, ghostly figures emerged from the folds of the tents, their faces pale and shimmering, dressed in attire of centuries long gone. The ethereal travelers shifted, as if woven from the very fabric of the night, creating shadows that danced on the sands like mischievous sprites. With each whispered word, they spun tales of adventure and loss, but their eyes glistened with a wisdom that transcended time, revealing both untold dreams and unspoken regrets. Omar, entranced by the spectacle before them, leaned closer to Layla, nudging her with an incredulous chuckle. "You do realize this is not your typical desert party, right?" he quipped, earning a side-eye from Layla as she tried to process the surreal scene unfolding. As the moonlight illuminated the melancholy smiles of the ghostly travelers, Layla's heart ached with sorrow. These souls had once known the warmth of camaraderie, but now lingered in this sand-laden purgatory. In the throes of their ethereal performance, she could almost taste their nostalgia, a bittersweet blend likened to the last drops of an old soda, fizz barely hanging on. It was here, in this middle ground of life and legend, that Layla began to grasp the truth hidden in the fabric of their stories, the irreplaceable value of home, and the ties that bind us to it. As the last note of the traveler's song faded into the haunting stillness of the night, Layla felt the weight of their stories pressing upon her like the sandstorms that raged through the desert. The ghosts looked upon her with yearning eyes, as if daring her to acknowledge the lessons etched into the tapestry of their lives. In that charged moment, she was confronted with the choice that loomed before her. Would she continue to wander without purpose? Or could she cast aside her fears and embrace the bonds of family that called her name? The irony struck her like a loaf of bread to the face, searching for freedom, yet shackled by longing for connection. It was as if the universe had penned her own plot twist. She was not merely a traveler, but a keeper of tales, tasked with never forgetting those who had come before her. With a surge of determination, Layla stepped forward, her voice echoing across the sands, stronger than she ever imagined. "I won't forget you," she proclaimed, her words wrapped in the warmth of newfound resolve. The ghostly travelers leaned in closer, their eyes widening, for they knew the power of a promise made under the cloak of night. It was a promise that could bridge the chasm between the past and the present, a promise that could change the course of their destinies. With every heartbeat, it felt like the desert itself nodded in agreement. The weight of history blended with hope mingling in the cool night air, their fates spiraling towards a destiny only they could write. As Layla and Omar trudged back towards the flickering campfire, the scent of burning cedar wafted through the air, mingling with the cool night breeze. The glow of the flames danced on their faces, revealing the weariness etched into their features, but also a glimmer of exhilaration. Their hearts felt like deflated balloons filled with wisdom instead of air, heavy yet buoyant. They recounted their adventure through the hidden glades, where the moonlight kissed the dewdrops, turning ordinary leaves into glittering jewels. And in that magical moment, they knew that stories were more than just yarns spun for amusement. They were the lifeblood of connection, bridging souls through laughter and tears, even if the tears were as thick as the chocolate syrup one might regret guzzling at midnight. Gathered around the fire, their caravan companions looked up with eager eyes, expectant as children during story time, ready to be whisked away to lands unseen. Layla and Omar began their tale, painting a vivid picture of mystical figures and shared dreams, quite like a real-life episode of a fantastical series. Think Game of Thrones meets The Muppet Show. They spoke of lessons learned from the wise old traveler, who seemed to embody the spirit of every wise grandparent with a rich backstory and a penchant for absurdly corny jokes. As the moon etched shadows on their faces, the travelers listened, chuckling at the irony of a lost adventure that proved they had, in fact, found something far greater than any GPS could ever provide. Each other. The fire crackled and popped, echoing the laughter and gasps of the companions as the tale drew them in. A warm tapestry of empathy woven from shared experiences. With every word, Layla and Omar wove a thread of kinship that bound them tighter than an overstuffed suitcase after a shopping spree in a foreign market. Each twist of the tale resonated with truths that seemed to shimmer in the firelight, illuminating faces marked by both joy and worry. In a world that feels like it's tripping over its own shoelaces, stories become the starlit paths guiding them back to a sense of belonging and togetherness. A collective, we, that shone brighter than the moon above. As they finished their story, a hush fell over the group, punctuated only by the distant hoot of an owl, as if nature itself had paused to absorb the weight of their words. It dawned on Layla that each face reflected her own sense of being lost and found, threaded through the camaraderie that encircled them like an indestructible blanket. With each tale shared, they healed old wounds, or at least bandaged them with the soothing balm of collective laughter. Perhaps they wouldn't need an acting troupe to tell their stories. With each ember snapping and crackling, they became the living embodiment of every fable passed down through generation after generation. Their lives intertwined like a well-worn plot in a beloved novel. As the moon continued its ascent, casting silver beams that danced against the shadows, Layla and Omar looked around, their hearts swelling with an appreciation that seemed almost magical. They realized they were never truly lost when surrounded by such vibrant storytellers, not even in the pitch of the unknown. And so they settled down, arms around each other and their companions, under the vast, starlit sky, ready to delve into the next chapter of their tale. In that embrace lay the true magic of the caravan, an unapologetic acceptance of cracks and crevices that made them whole, turning each traveler into a vital character, their narratives crackling like the fire, vibrant and alive. Perhaps tomorrow they would discover even more stories whispering in the winds. But for now, they basked in the knowledge that home wasn't a place. It was the heartbeat of their shared stories, echoing under the eloquent, watchful moon.